Please get ready for a dictation of transcription number 79 and 80 from Sir Kailash Chandra magazine. 5 seconds. Start. Sir, I am a great believer in the public sector, and I have often said in this house that public ownership can take many forms, that it is not necessary for us to think in the old terms of complete nationalization. The British Labour Party has on this question done a great deal of hard thinking, and I would therefore say that it is a little disappointing to find that the returns from our public sector concerns are on the low side. Actually, I do not think that the public sector concerns should be condemned for that reason. They are new to their jobs. What about the returns that the private sector concerns give in the first few years of their existence? But we should have a high standard of efficiency in our public sector concerns, and we should make them yield good returns. If that is done, it will be possible for us also to reduce the burden of taxation on all classes of the community. I do not say that the public sector concerns should be run from a commercial point of view only. Profit is one of the things they are meant to yield. I would in this connection say that I would like our employees, I mean the poorer section classes of our employees, to be associated in some way with the management of our public sector concerns. So far as our private sector undertakings are concerned, I have been thinking in terms of co-ownership. I think I said this last year, and perhaps I am repeating it again. I think our employees should be made, or rather they should be regarded or should be given the status of shareholders, and they should have a voice in the management of the concerns they are running. They should have a voice in selecting the directors who shall run the concerns for the country. They should have the opportunity to rise to positions of managerial importance in the concerns with which they are connected. I think it is in some such way that we shall avoid the evils of what may be called bureaucratic socialism and give content to the shape of socialism, which gives initiative, which gives opportunity, and which gives a sense of importance and dignity to the common man. Therefore, our effort should be to eliminate gradually the distinction between the employee and the employer. My point of view and the point of view of the honourable member are so different that we can only meet socially outside. Now, Mr. Vice Chairman, much has been said about foreign capital and foreign technical aid. There are people who are opposed to the employment of foreign capital at all, but no country has been able to do so. We should, however, be able to employ foreign capital without strings attached to them, as we are doing today. So far as foreign technical aid is concerned, we cannot dispense with it. I would like to say that there is a tendency in our country to be content with the second best or the third best. I think that is an unfortunate tendency. We have in the world of technology and in the world of science a great deal to learn from foreign countries. We have to learn a great deal from the United States of America and the Soviet Union, and also from France and other countries, and we should be humble in our approach towards this problem. We should be prepared to give to our managerial staff opportunities of acquiring technical knowledge and technical skill in these countries. I will finish in less than a minute. There is this question which has assumed great importance, namely the question of price control. I know this subject raises some difficult questions. We have to consider the position of the farmer who has been exploited for ages by the people of the cities. But we have also to think of our people in the cities, all of whom are not rich. Many of them have to lead very humble lives, and the rise in prices, the rise in the cost of living, particularly in urban areas, is becoming very high. It is therefore necessary for us to have some system of price control. We should have a price stabilization board which should be able to regulate prices in such a manner that they are fair to the farmer and they are also fair to the consumer in the towns. We should eliminate as far as possible the middleman. Then I should like to say that I am glad that the finance minister has given up deficit financing. But the question which arises is how we shall finance our fourth five-year plan. Methods must be discovered which would enable the financing of the fourth five-year plan in such a manner as to provide the greatest possible employment to our people. We must attach importance not only to our basic industries and to our heavy industries, but to others also. Mr. Vice Chairman, this finance bill has been introduced at a time of crisis, at a time of external crisis. In addition to the Chinese, on the north we have incursions from the neighboring country on the west. Therefore, it seems to me that this finance bill and the budget proposals should be defense-oriented, but we find no provision for increase in defense expenditure. It is still rupees 740 crores as it was at the time when the finance minister announced his proposals. If we are to put our defense in proper order so as to ensure the security of our country, if we are not to look for military alliances in order to supplement our defense forces, our defense expenditure must be increased considerably, and it will have to be rupees 800 crores, 900 crores, or even 1,000 crores of rupees. There is enough money in this budget to allow transfer of more to the defense services. Money has to be found by reducing expenditure on other items which absorb so much money. The expenditure on the plan is 200 crores of rupees on the revenue account and another 300 crores on the capital account. This must be drastically pruned. The plan expenditure must be reduced to indispensable expenditure which may be required for the development of the country, like agricultural improvements and all facilities and aids that agriculture requires, like village roads, minor irrigation, reclamation of land, anti-erosion projects, literacy, without which our agriculturists cannot increase their productivity, technical education, which will also improve the productivity of not only the agriculturists but also those engaged in the industrial sector. There is certain expenditure which is unjustifiable in the present circumstances, in the present crisis situation in which we are placed. There is the expenditure on the Planning Commission. Cannot we really have a less expensive Planning Commission than the one which we have and which costs about 1 crore of rupees a year? The National Economic Development Council of England costs only 20 lakhs of rupees, 250,000 pounds sterling, and it does as good work as, if not better than, our Planning Commission to increase the productivity of England. There is also that absolutely unjustifiable item of family planning. I believe that in the fourth plan it will be raised to 70 crores. Then what about the expenditure on our administrative services? It has been growing steadily. We must have a commission on the pattern of the Hoover Commission, which proposed a reduction of $7,000 million in the administrative expenditure budget of United States of America. We must have a commission on that pattern in order to go into the whole business of our administrative system from top to bottom, from the center down to the states, in order to modernize it. We have been promised administrative reform committees in the Secretariat. The Home Minister makes much of these administrative reforms committees. First of all, their objective is only to reduce the delay in the secretariat, not to reduce the expenditure. Stop.